joining us today. We know we have people watching from all over the state of Texas and possibly beyond, so we'd love to hear from you where you currently are. If you'd please just tell us in the comments where you're watching from. If you're a small business owner, drop your business page there. We'd love to see you. We're going to be taking questions at the end of the broadcast, so please drop any questions you might have as we go along. At the very end, we'll do our best to address everyone's questions. I'm Rebecca with the Greater Killeen Chamber of Commerce. On Caffeinated Leaders, we like to sit down with local leaders and have a good conversation about important things happening in our area. I hope you brought a cup of your favorite coffee to enjoy from the comfort of your desk. We're going to be talking about how small businesses can survive the coronavirus. We have with us today Representative Brad Buckley, Texas State Representative with House District 54, and John Crutchfield, President and CEO of the Greater Killeen Chamber of Commerce. Welcome, gentlemen.
Morning.
Good morning.
Mr. Crutchfield, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Rebecca. I appreciate all your help in setting this up, and I want to welcome Brad. We have a long relationship with Dr. Buckley. Buckley name's highly respected in this community. Brad's a very successful small businessman, veterinarian. Years ago, he was on the board of directors here and had a role in hiring me, which he may regret before this is over with. Then became chairman of our board of directors and is now very effectively serving as our state representative for District 54 in the Texas House of Representatives. And when I say effective, I mean that. I've worked with Brad down in Austin, and he gets the job done. So Brad, thanks for taking time out. I know you're getting inundated with all kinds of requests, and we appreciate you providing some time for us. I thought I might. Happy to do it. So what let's do, we know people are frustrated, they have concerns about the future. You and I both know that there's quite a bit of help on the way. The circumstance is fluid. Things are moving at warp speed. So let's talk a little bit about what's happening at the state level, and I'll let you do that, and then we'll both chime in on the federal level, which is really fluid this morning, and then wind up with other issues you might want to talk about and from a community perspective, and then go from there. So why don't you talk a little bit about what you're hearing from constituents, what you're hearing from folks in Austin at this point.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, John. Again, thanks for letting me be here, and to everyone out there in our small business and business community. I just want to encourage you that we're going to get out of this, and we're going to come out the other side on fire in a good way. And I think that that's something we've all got to keep in front of us. We've got to stay positive about this. I can tell you that, from the state of Texas standpoint, planning for this began in January, where our emergency planners began to look at scenarios that could impact the state of Texas and in all regions. We began having visits with the governor and other leaders via conference call middle of March. And, that was as we saw the state sort of build their plan or begin to work the plan that they had built earlier. And what I can tell you, the main effort that we began with was public health and safety. And when we looked at some of the models that the virus had impacted across the world, we knew that the main thing we had to do was make certain that our healthcare system did not become basically overtaxed with the inability to deliver the types of care that some populations will need with this virus. And so that was job one. After that, it was how do you balance the public health challenge that you have, and then how do you integrate what businesses can and cannot do in order to meet that challenge? And so the first thing the governor began to do was to look at freeing up business through some deregulation orders that allowed to keep our supply chain running. There's some trucking orders that allowed different types of trucks to deliver goods to our grocery stores and pharmacies. We looked at loosening regulation on healthcare licensing. That has been done, to make sure that we have, all hands on deck to prepare for this. Also looked at what we could do to have more hospital bed space in the event that we need it. All of this anticipating what may happen. And that's where folks have been frustrated a little bit. But when you look at the numbers and you just do sort of a simple count on what it really makes you do some serious planning. The governor then chose to let this be a regional approach. He let county judges and mayors take the lead on what they felt was best for their community. And I feel like that has been a very good approach as we work forward. But even if you look in smaller towns across Texas, you'll see that they are taking this, though they may not even have a positive case reported, they are really being a part of our solution as well. So I think what I've been heartened by has been this whole of Texas approach to solving this problem and getting us up and running again as fast as possible. What most folks in small business have been concerned about, I think, has been, first of all, be the sales tax issue. And so on March the 20th, sales taxes were due for February. And what the state comptroller, Glenn Hager, has done as he has set forth a process where you can contact the enforcement division to receive waivers of penalties and interest should you be delayed in paying your taxes. His thinking was that these taxes were basically collected prior to the ordered shutdowns and stay home, stay safe orders, and so these taxes basically are some dollars that our counties and communities and state are depending on to operate. And so we understand they wanted to have some flexibility on that, but he did want to make sure that folks were simply passing those dollars back to whom they were collected on behalf of. And so you'll see that. We have a 1-800 number that we can share. If you need to contact the enforcement hotline, it's 1-800-252-8880. And that is how you learn about your options for compliance with regulations involving remittance of sales tax. And so I think that's a really important thing for small business to understand. And I think you'll see on your screen now that is the number of the enforcement hotline. Just to go into some of the other state issues some folks have called me about, folks have called about child care. Folks have called about, how their business is going to get through this to the other side. Folks have called just about the healthcare aspects, having real concerns and fear about, populations and family members. And one of the things that we did at our business, as a veterinary clinic, we were deemed essential, but we felt like that even an essential business must practice sound strategies to mitigate the virus. And so I encourage those of you in business still operating to make sure you practice social distancing, effective cleanliness, to make certain that even though you continue to operate, even though it may be at reduced revenues and volumes, remember we all have a role to play. And so in our business, we were concerned about all of us being there at once and then a staff member or a client testing positive about having to quarantine everybody. So we've divided into two teams. I want to thank my partner, Carrie Jones, for really coming up with a very interesting plan that basically where we have a team working now that will work for 2 weeks, and then I'll lead the team that will come in and work the following 2 weeks. And that way we have basically staff standing by should Team A have to go and go into isolation or quarantine. And that's just sort of anticipating sort of worst case scenario where we continue these essential services we provide. So I encourage all of our businesses to practice processes that fit your business. Be very mindful. Think 6 degrees of separation. Think about mitigating that virus and making sure that we have a safe place for folks to come in for essential services and products. But also remember, we're protecting, elderly, immunocompromised, folks with pre-existing conditions, because we still know that we know anybody can get the virus, but there's a population that it can really impact in a very detrimental way. And so, I feel like we have to be mindful of that, and we're all in this together to make sure that these folks are absolutely protected. As far as the child care front, I'd like to mention that the Boys and Girls Club of Central Texas, they have stood up a program that begins, I believe, on Monday that will provide child care for folks involved in our healthcare work, mission essential families who support COVID-19 response infrastructure. We'll also, as space allows, be able to provide childcare for those folks that are involved in essential business activities. So I really want to congratulate and thank the Boys and Girls Club for what they're doing to really provide an essential service in a time where it's very difficult on some of those folks that have to be on the front lines. I think we also have to thank our schools, because I know that our schools, across House District 54, from a small district of nearly 300 kids to KISD with 45,000 plus students, Lampasas and Salado in between, they have all stood up learning opportunities, from online learning to providing packets, teachers that have engaged their students via telephone calls and emails, all the way to very sophisticated web-based instruction. And this was stood up literally over a matter of days. And so I congratulate them and thank them for what they're doing. And I think parents, I want to thank you too for being understanding and really becoming our homeschool partners to make sure kids continue to learn. And I think all of that, our community is about business, but our schools and what our kids do is so important in our area. And I want to thank them for the efforts they've shown and the things they're planning for the future. Again, I want to tell all our seniors out there, I know this is an exciting time and it seems like things are a little off, but I know that there's plans underway and we'll get through this and we'll celebrate your accomplishments. And we'll do so in unique ways and hopefully in traditional ways as well. So I want to just, class of 2020, you're special, but now you're extremely special because of what you've endured. And I tend to think that this will make us all stronger as we move forward. So I'll be happy to answer questions at the end concerning state response. I know probably didn't cover everything. It's literally about 6 pages worth. But that to me is sort of the highlights of our state response.
Well, thanks, Brad. I appreciate that. I want to follow up on a couple of things you said, but before I do that, I want to let everybody know that information like the 1-800 number that you shared and other information that we're going to be talking about here will be posted on the Chamber's website. A lot of it will be on Dr. Buckley's website, I'm sure. The Chamber website is www.killeen.com, killeenchamber.com, and you can get there that way. So don't worry about writing this information down. We'll make it available to you on that website as soon as this is over with. And this conversation is being recorded. So if you want to hear parts of it again, it will be posted on the Chamber's website, and you can go find it there. Dr. Buckley made a couple of comments that I think are really important. What we're dealing with here is a medical problem, not an economic problem. We had a strong economy going in. We will have a strong economy going out based on everything that I've seen. So we just need to stay the course. There's reasons for hope. The economists that I read basically tell us that the economy is going to come back stronger than it was before, and we look forward to that. The Chamber is also practicing some real preventive efforts. We have our staff working from home to a large extent, remotely, telecommuting. Rebecca and I are here. We have another employee here. Others come in periodically, depending upon on demand. But that's really a good thing to do, and so we would encourage you to practice that. Brad mentioned the governor and the state. Earlier in the week, the governor declared an emergency disaster for the state of Texas and petitioned the president to approve that, and the president approved it yesterday, from what I'm able to understand. That makes the entire state of Texas eligible for what's called stimulus or some relief that's being planned at the federal level, and I think it's probably a good time to start talking about some of that. There is part of the package that you hear about called the CARES Act, the Coronavirus Aid Relief, and Economic Securities Act. That act passed the Senate on Wednesday night late. It is at the House today and is scheduled for a vote. The House convened in Washington at 9 o'clock this morning. They're in the process of debating. There's some issues, there always are, but at the end of the day, we expect that bill to be passed. And when it does, it will have several very positive effects. You've heard about the federal stimulus for individuals and families. That will be funded, and it will provide a one-time check in the amount of $1,200 for families for adults making under $75,000 a year, and a one-time check of $2,400 per couple plus $500 per child for families earning less than $150,000 a year. And I don't know if you heard this, Brad, but I heard the Secretary of Treasury state, I think it was Wednesday evening, that he expects those checks will be deposited in local banks within 3 weeks, where they have deposit information, and the checks they mail out will take a little longer. So that's going to be immediate relief for a lot of folks. So that's what they typically call phase one of the stimulus. We expect that the bill will be passed on the House side today sometime. The president has announced he will sign it when it gets to his desk, and that's very important because it triggers a lot of activity, one of which is the mailing of those checks. So you got something to look forward to there. There's another portion of the act that I know a lot of our small businesses have been pursuing, and that's the Small Business Administration's Economic Injury Disaster Loan. A lot of people call that phase two of the process. And a lot of our small businesses have been out trying to fill in applications. I know, Brad, you're probably hearing some of this. There's a lot of frustration. That is an SBA program, and you have to file an application with the SBA, and the SBA website's been up and down. It was down yesterday. The latest information we had was you need to download the application to paper and fill it out and send it in that way. Again, you can watch our website. We'll keep you up to date on the status of their website and where that is. We did a webinar day before yesterday, Wednesday, with Jesse Bro from First National Bank and Alicia Perkins of our Business Resource Center. It was kind of a step-by-step walkthrough of how to fill out those forms. So you need to continue to work on those forms. It's important. That is a loan. And again, we've got the details of that. We'll post it on our website. It's a significant amount of money. And if you're interested in that, again, we've got a lot of information. You're going to need information like your most recent federal tax return, your end profit and loss statement, your current year-to-date profit and loss statement, and monthly breakdown of sales figures when you file that application. So you might want to continue to do that. It's not as urgent as some of you may feel like it is. There are going to be other opportunities, and Brad and I are going to kind of talk about that in just a minute. SBA has announced they're going to do some webinars on that process over the next few Wednesdays, beginning Wednesday, April 8th, April 22nd, and May the 6th at 2:30 in the afternoon. So they'll be instructing folks on how to fill out the forms. Again, all that information is going to be on our website. The third piece of that, or what's called phase three of the CARE Act, what's called Keeping Workers Paid and Employment Act. Again, I would suggest that you want to wait a while before you get after this, because this is going to roll out really fast. Brad, I know you've had some conversations with Congressman Carter's staff about that, Jonas Miller. You might share with folks what you've learned from him. I've had some conversations with bankers as recently this morning. So tell folks what you know, and then I'll try to fill in with some of what I know about it. Is Brad there? Hello. Okay, I got you.
Yeah, we dropped out for a minute. Lots of
Yeah.
folks on the internet.
Okay, so and I'm not sure when you dropped out, but I was talking about this Keeping Workers Paid and Employment Act, and I know you've had conversations with Jonas Miller from Carter's staff about it. Might be good for you to share with folks what you've heard. And again, we need to emphasize to everybody, this has not been approved by the House, and it hadn't been signed by the president. So we don't want to get too far ahead here. Go ahead, Brad.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, we're having a little connection issues on my end, but yeah, I think that the important thing to understand is that until all of this is signed, are we on?
You are now.
Okay, all right. I think the important thing for us to understand is that until this is sort of signed, sealed, and delivered, it is still subject to change. But I think the thing we need to realize, I think the most important thing that small business needs to recognize as you move forward is that as the Senate version has a double dip provision that keeps you from, if you apply for the EIDL or the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, you don't qualify, you cannot receive the Paycheck Protection Loan. And so I think I think businesses need to really look at their own situation to see which fits them better. To me, as a small business person, the Paycheck Protection Loan program, due to the fact if you meet the guidelines and follow the guidelines of the program, it becomes, by the end of June, basically a grant program. And so it can cost you up to 4% interest to get there. If you meet the thresholds of keeping folks employed that is required, then SBA comes through and then basically pays off the note. The other thing I think that's important is that this will all be done through your local banker or your bank. If you're a business and you have a relationship, and all businesses do have a relationship with a banker, as opposed to some of the tenuous processes that are required through SBA. It is a SBA loan, but it's going to be administered, if you will, by our local bankers, which I believe is really important as far as being able to access capital in a faster manner so that we can really come out of this with the same intensity of our economic growth as we did before. And primarily, we have to keep folks employed, and that's what this seeks to do. So again, let's let Congress do their job and pass this thing, get it to the governor, get it to the president to sign, and then go from there. I think that there will be some teleconference opportunities after signage by the president, where folks can jump on a conference call and hear from Congressman Carter and some SBA staff and maybe hopefully some bankers to really dig into the details of this. So let's all hope that Congress gets this done today, and then we can look at getting it signed by the president and move forward from there.
It's really a remarkable piece of legislation in a lot of ways. I don't think I've seen anything like it at the federal level before. In fact, I know I haven't in my lifetime. It's, as Brad mentioned, the SBA is basically going to deputize local banks, lending organizations, credit unions, and those folks. And it's your local banker who is going to accept your application, review your application, and fund the loan. And the Secretary of Treasury said night before last again, he wants same-day service. In other words, you apply in the morning, you get your money in the afternoon. If they can do that, that will be remarkable. And I would caution, as Brad did, give your bankers a chance to catch up with this. Brad and I probably know more about it than a lot of them do at this point in time because we're a little bit more in the loop. Within 72 hours of passage of execution of the bill, and what'll have to happen is the House will have to pass the bill. It'll go to the president's desk. He's already said he will sign it. Within 72 hours of that period of time, Congressman Carter wants to begin holding teleconferences. He'll start with the banks. and match them up with the SBA regional administrator, because they've got issues about their financial structure and how it fits in all of this. And then we'll start getting to small businesses. So what I'd suggest, it might be helpful if you're a small business and you're listening to this and you want more information, email us here at the chamber, reach out to Rebecca, give us your contact information, and we'll line you up for one of those future teleconferences. This is really a interesting piece of legislation. Fundamentally, the bank's going to loan the money and SBA is going to buy them. And as Brad mentioned, it is also unique in that it is retroactive to February the 15th. So if you've laid people off, you can bring them back on the payroll and pay them back wages, and it covers 2 months of that. It covers a great deal of expenses from salaries, commissions, payment of cash tips, all the fringe benefits if you provided them, retirement contributions, covered leave, interest on mortgage obligations that you acquired prior to February the 15th, rent, utilities. So it's a remarkable package, and it's quite a bit of money, something you're probably going to want to do, or certainly compared to the other program that we mentioned earlier. What I would do at this point in time, if I were a small business, I might call my local banker and say, hey, when you guys get geared up for this, I'd like to be first in line or in line to come down and see you. Again, from what I understand of the act, once the president signs it, SBA has been told you got 15 days to issue the regulations and get out of the way. So that's quick. And so the bankers, they're going to get they're going to get a lot of information quick. So this is an interesting program. Maximum loan amount is $10 million. If you own more than one, you have more than one location, you can apply for each of those locations. It's really a powerful tool, and it will do what Brad mentioned. It will bring us out of this very strong, very quickly. So if you're a small business, there's a lot of reason to hope, and I'm confident Congress will do the right thing and pass this bill. Anything you want to add to that, Brad? We pretty well covered that.
Yeah, I think you bet. I think it's also important that that some of our folks that own property, that have businesses that rent from them, understand that this program. I know I've had some calls and talked to some folks that own businesses that pay rent to either an office building or some other type of rental building, that they're concerned about being able to pay rent. And I think that this program is going to be an important it's going to be an important tool where our businesses that rent can sort of bridge the gap and stay engaged in where they are, and give our landlords and property owners, if you will, some comfort that businesses will come out the other side of this. And so I think it really works on both parts of our economy as far as this is concerned. And I just want to, I think, awareness of this program is important so that our business owners can make sure that they're building those relationships right now and be able to access these funds to keep them going, because that's going to be our power coming out of this, will be everybody back on their feet. And I think the most important thing that was probably said today, and Mr. Crutchfield hit it right on the nose, businesses aren't struggling now because they had a bad business. This is not a business issue. This is a public health issue. And so it's quite unique in the history of our country, at least the modern history of our country. So that's why I feel like that, we can come out of this at a real fast pace of economic growth.
Yeah, and so if you're going through the economic injury disaster loan process, that's a good thing, because you're compiling information that you need for that application. That information will be useful as we get into this other program. So you're not wasting your time. You're doing the right thing. If you have applied for an EIDL loan, as Brad mentioned, there's a double dip provision. If you haven't accepted the funds, you can likely convert to this other program. So, I mean, just remain calm, continue to go through the process. You're doing constructive things with your time, and it will pay off here pretty quickly. It's good news for your employees, particularly if you had to lay some folks off. They'll be made whole again, and we hope that it gets passed. Brad, what else would you like to talk about this morning?
Well, I think one thing that I skipped over in the state response is the governor, for those that are suffering unemployment right now, the governor has relaxed some of the processes, the investigatory periods for unemployment claims. I know there's been some issues of folks making contact with the TWC. They've been overwhelmed. They're trying to stand up more capacity. But the process for accessing unemployment benefits should become easier over the next couple of days. So I just want to make sure that we note that for those that have found themselves in that situation, and or have friends or family that we're trying to tear down as much regulation as we can to really respond to needs. Again, this is a public health issue, not an economic one. There's no bad actor economically in this. This was a great economy that basically has been ground to a halt because of a public health crisis. And so it's unprecedented, but I believe the tools are going to be in place to drive us out of this. And we will certainly try to keep you informed. One of the ways that we communicate in our office, and we have worked real hard to be a source of accurate and timely information, is on Facebook. We can update that faster than we can our website. So at Brad Buckley for Texas, my crack staff, Jessica and Eric, keep that updated with the latest orders from the governor. We keep statistics on there concerning the number of cases across the state of Texas and Bell County, just so you kind of see where we're going. And also just a way to get information to you quickly. So that's Brad Buckley for Texas. You can like that page and you'll be able to receive notifications that we've got information on there that might be important to you. We also check back on some of the pages you've looked at, our resources. We update them as new information becomes available. What I like to have is a one-stop shop where you can pull things up, and it has web links and information that you can go find out important information about things that may be important to you. So that's the way we're communicating, I think, most effectively right now.
There's always good that comes out of these circumstances, even with the suffering. And one of my observations would be, and Brad's mentioned it briefly, is we're doing a great deal of deregulating at the federal and the state level, and that's a good thing. I think the paradigm is going to change some going forward, and as to how the federal government regulates. I think that'll be true at the state level. I know it'll have a big impact on the upcoming legislative session in January. So that's all good. We just through this, get the economy going, and there are good times ahead. There's help on the way. So with that, I'd encourage people to be positive. Rebecca, if you've got any questions, we'll be glad to answer them. Just let Brad and I know. Okay.
We've received some good questions. So Mr. Crutchfield, this first question is for you. Are any of the measures that they are trying to put into place going to help or aid those that are home-based businesses?
As far as I know, home-based businesses qualify for certainly the second part of that program that we mentioned, the Keeping Workers Paid in Employment Act. Home-based businesses qualify for that. Contractors, what they call gig workers, qualify for it. There's no limit, from what I understand, on who can and cannot apply.
Representative Buckley, this question is probably most for you. What can some local businesses do to support essential personnel during this crisis? Were you able to hear the question?
Okay, sorry, it kind of cut out. What can local businesses do to support essential personnel? I think I really look at it this way. I think as what if you have the resources, donating to charities and churches is important because those are groups that have so many contacts throughout the community. But here's the other thing we can do. If we think about those providing essential services, let's talk about our healthcare work. What we can do the most is practice these safe public health strategies to make sure that our system doesn't become overwhelmed. The best thing we can do for our essential healthcare workers is to not put them in a position where they're overwhelmed. And I think there are some examples in the country right now where you see what happens when you have a number of cases of care. And so and I think I mentioned this before, even if you're an essential business or essential service, we still have the obligation to go about our business in a way that does not contribute to the spread of this virus. This is a novel virus. And that the reason it's dangerous is our bodies have never seen it before. Many of us, I suspect, when they come out with serology testing, I'm sorry, this is the veterinarian in me talking. When the serology testing comes out, we're going to find probably a lot of us have been exposed and we have some protective immunity. But right now, if everything you do, if you go to your essential job or you go to the grocery store, there may be some processes in place that you may find a little bit burdensome, maybe a little aggravating, but please participate and understand that the folks that work in that grocery store day in, day out are frontline workers on this. Our food service personnel in our schools that are still continuing to feed our kids every day, they are essential providers in this. They're first responders, if you will, of making sure that our kids that really need those meals are getting fed. So as a business, we can reach out. The other thing we can do, I think, is those of us that can afford it financially, continue to support our local businesses, especially our restaurants. They have been forced into a paradigm that is basically it's made everybody a takeout drive-through place. So get yourself a cycle. That's what we've done at our house is we've kind of come up with a schedule, and we try to purchase something one day from one restaurant, one from the other. I think one of the fallouts of this for me is I'm going to have to go on a diet when this is all over because my eating habits have changed. But continue to support local business. Understand that you've had service staff that has literally been displaced. Go in there, continue to tip well. Let our local restaurants continue to maintain those employees so that we can come out stronger on the other side of it.
Excellent. Okay, this next question says, will businesses receive a stimulus check also, or is that only for individuals and families?
Well, I'll take that. Businesses will not receive a stimulus check. They'll have to go through the loan process, which we've laid out pretty clearly, I think. It's families and individuals under certain income levels who will receive a stimulus check, and that will happen pretty quickly. But businesses need, if they want assistance, they're going to have to go through the loan process, and they're going to have to apply.
Good. Okay, this next question is kind of a two-part question.
Go ahead, Brad.
Can I interject? Okay. Also, I think it's important to know that, and I don't know if I might have mentioned it, I don't recall, but 501c3s are also eligible for the Paycheck Protection Program. So I know we have many of those in our areas that do great work that are really being impacted by this. So I want to make sure that our 501c3s know they also qualify.
Perfect.
And in
Thank
fact,
you for that clarification.
Yeah. Okay. Other questions?
Yes, sir. This next question. It's a two-part question. Mr. Crutchfield, this one's probably for you. Any recommendations on guidelines or formulas on how to pay part-time hourly employees staying at home due to the shelter-in-place guidelines? Should I just base it off of the average hours within the past 3 months of work history or other suggestions?
I mean, that sounds reasonable to me. I think you treat them like you did before this crisis occurred, and then if you want if you want assistance in recovering the cost, you've got that documented. So the way that, as I understand, they're going to determine the loan amount is by looking at previous months' expenses. So I would tell anybody to continue to do what you were doing prior to February the 15th. And if you apply for assistance, you're going to have that documentation to use.
Excellent. Okay, just one last question, I think. Could you just, within a couple of sentences, do a quick recap of what phase 2 looks like and what phase 3 looks like? I think there might still be a little bit of confusion about those differences.
Okay, so let me do that, and Brad can clarify or help out. Phase 2 is a loan administered by the SBA, and you've got to apply to the SBA, and you've got to pay the loan back at 3.75% interest, and you have to deal with the SBA. Phase 3 is a loan that is convertible to a grant, and you have to apply through your local bank. It's at 4%, but then again, if you comply with the provisions of the loan and you use the money in the manner that you stated in your application on January the 30th, 2020, it's eligible to be converted to a grant. So they're two separate programs. SBA is the direct regulator or lender or administrator in the first program. Phase 2, it's your local bank as overseen by the SBA in phase 3. So one's got a good deal more red tape in it than the other, unfortunately, but that's primarily the difference between the two. And I would emphasize, I know people are frustrated, they're impatient, they need relief pretty quickly. I think it's in your best interest, because of that double dip provision that Dr. Buckley spoke about, that you engage your bankers and start to work on that relationship, but don't commit to phase 2 before you understand phase 3 and its availability.
Excellent. Dr. Buckley, do you have anything else to add?
I think that is an excellent description of the differences between the two programs, and I think it really speaks to me. In my mind, it's pretty clear which is going to be the most user friendly for small business, and so I'm a big phase 3 guy. I'll tell you that. I think that one makes a lot of sense of getting us up and running sooner. Though there could be other instances where possible, the phase 2 EIBL program could be meaningful to some business, but I think for most of us, this phase 3 program makes a lot of sense.
Thank you, gentlemen, both for being here and for answering our questions, really helping us to understand how small businesses really can survive the coronavirus. There are some great things in place. They just need to jump on board and start taking advantage of those items. We are going to put all these resources, like Mr. Crutchfield said. They will be up on our website. You'll be able to find a really quick link on our homepage that just says COVID-19. You can click on that. It'll take you directly where you need to go. Just as a quick reference for some of our small businesses, Mr. Crutchfield recommended that you get in touch with your local banker. We do have one other resource I'd like to share with you. The Business Resource Center has business counselors that are keyed up and ready to answer all your questions and help you individually. So if you'd like a little bit of more one-on-one help and you want to find out some more information, let me just give you their information really quick. Their names are Alicia and Miriam, and here is how you can contact them at the Business Resource Center. Just first name Alicia at syntexbrc.com or Miriam at syntexbrc.com. Right now the phone number that you can reach them, 254-200-2011. Again, if you didn't write that down, that's okay. We're going to put it all on our website. You'll be able to find it all later. Any last words, gentlemen, before we sign off?
Well, I'd like to thank Brad for his time today. I know he's busy and a lot of people are pursuing him. So, Brad, thanks for helping out. We appreciate it very much.
I think maybe we've lost him with the internet connection. Mr. Crutchfield, thank you to you as well. Hope you all have a wonderful day, and please let us know how we can help your business.